Our next speaker is Dr. Yaseman Amenajad. Yaseman is an assistant professor in the Department of Mathematics and Computing at Mount Royal University. Her research interests are building innovative solutions for real-life challenges using applied machine learning and data analytics on large-scale cloud computing platforms, as well as small resource-constrained devices such as cell phones and wearable devices. With several awards in teaching excellence, industry experience, Yaseman also brings industry a lot of practical real-world experience into the classroom. So, Yaseman.
Thanks, James, for the kind introduction, and also your team for organizing this event. And thanks, Amy Efwa, for the great talk. It's my great pleasure to introduce the speakers for our next talk, Robert Wiles and Dr. Chowdhury. Robert Wiles is an issue strategist at the City of Calgary. Robert is a social worker by training, and Robert's portfolio focuses on issues related to poverty and access to City of Calgary's subsidy program. Robert spent his formative years in Ottawa and made his way west for academics and never left. And we're very grateful to have Robert with us today, along with Dr. Turin Chowdhury. Dr. Chowdhury is Associate Professor of University of Calgary and is an equity researcher. His work is informed by an overarching social justice lens and focused on the vulnerable population of society, including new immigrants, refugee, and visible minority and ethnic communities. He leads his program of research through the approach of community knowledge engagement, where he strives to involve community members in the research process in an equitable and empowered way. Thanks, Robert and Dr. Turin, for accepting to be with us and have this talk on a short notice. Please.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much. I think I need to share the screen if I can get that privilege, please. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so do you guys see the slide?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm not Robert. Rob, are you here? Sorry, couldn't see you in the screen.
I'm here, Turin.
Okay, so you didn't leave me alone. Thank you so much. Okay, so I think the story behind this results and whatever we are presenting in front of you, it started with a collaboration between us, that research group within the University of Calgary and City of Calgary, because we all got connected to address, to find out how to move forward with addressing digital equity in Calgary. So I think when Robert and his team and we got connected, we wanted, they wanted a strategy, and we wanted to, help them to build a strategy. And we went towards sort of getting activities rolling on. So we took on the university side, the academic side, took on a small, quick and environmental scan approach. And Robert, hopefully he will share afterwards, they took on the business perspective through the consultation in the community. So a few terminologies I just wanted to share with you so that we are on the same plate, because we have seen in our experience, we use lots of terminologies which is in the same domains, refers to something similar, but there are subtle differences. So by digital divide, as we will be presenting, we will be talking about, this refers to the disparity and the gap between the demographics localities that exist in terms of access to modern information and communication technologies. Now, in terms of demographics, it can be age group differences, it can be race-based differences, or it can be gender differences, it can be marital status, income, education, all those type of demographic differences. Due to those differences, people are having different level of access to digital technology. Now, when we talk about equity, we opted to stick to this definition of digital equity can be defined as a situation in which all individuals and communities have the necessary information and technological capacity for full participation in our society. So we would love to, I think that's a goal that we all love to reach. And then we know that digital equity is so important for in this current era of digitalization. And during the last couple of years, the COVID shows that like digital equity is an important thing to move our societies forward. Digital inclusion, it refers to the activities necessary to ensure that all individuals and communities, no matter in what scale they are in terms of being in a disadvantaged position, have access to use information and communication technologies. So we started our journey by sticking to this assumption that digital divide exists in our Calgary. We didn't want to prove that this exists or this doesn't exist. We wanted to learn from the others mean other cities of which are similar to Calgary, other programs, other research that has been done. How does different barriers contributes to the digital divide? And we also wanted to learn what are the demographics they have found the problem to be existing, and we would love to shorten our journey of identifying those demographics rather than based on the pre-reported demographics, those who needs help, we could have reached out directly to them to understand how we can improve the digital equity issue with them. So this is a general approach of collecting information. So, just on the academic viewpoints, organizational viewpoints, these are existing knowledge we want, and these are the, proactive way of doing research and generating new knowledge. But as a team, we decided that as a first base, we will be focusing on this already existing knowledge. So when we did this scan, and I didn't want to bother you with the number of papers that we went through, so probably, and then the process of screening and moving forward. So we found like there are 3 barriers to inclusion. One is the digital literacy or digital skills capability or digital knowledge. We will expand a little bit on this and afterwards later on. And then we have this affordability issue, and another component is the accessibility and availability issue that we identified. Then we had this, within them, we identified or we categorized how people have described it. And there are different angles within the digital literacy, including this technology literacy, even being aware of, availability of the digital services. Then the navigational literacy is another important thing, especially we know that this is a security issue. And the safe use of internet, I think nowadays, if it was now, I would also use the safe and ethical issue of internet and the language proficiency. This comes especially from the community that we are personally do research with. Affordability has device-related affordability. The subscription cost is there, service cost is there. Electricity bill, I think this one was identified couple of places, but on the other hand, that probably goes under the side of overall socioeconomic status, because we heard few stories as the narration is going on, people being around McDonald's, even if during the during the COVID period, when the McDonald's was closed, being around outside of the McDonald's to access the internet mobility, internet accessibility. And then the accessibility, as I said, if you can even access the infrastructure availability is there, but if you can even access the quality of the internet, the quality of the appropriate device, because that was more strongly that came out during this the school learning scenarios, where they had some devices, they had the quality of internet, but it was not, how to call it, properly catering to the load that a device or a internet internet bandwidth needed to do in-person Zoom classes or those type of activities. Now, when we were going through this, again, it is great. We took a cross-sectional approach, one-dimensional look at these three different ways, or many different ways of looking at the problem, but they are very much interconnected. So they are interconnected because these things, affordability and digital literacy accessibility, all are sort of a, interconnected through these different parameters or different issues. So that's the thing we needed to decipher and talk and among ourselves and understand and move forward. And another intention of our was from the other people's work, we wanted to find out population subgroups where people have found the problem to be more striking. And these are the groups that came up when we were doing our environmental scan. And I think this definitely has a face validity to it. And the work of this city in terms of their consultation, they also came up again and again, these population subgroups we need to focus more strongly upon to ensure equity. Another component that we wanted to the combination of these population subgroups. Again, that's contribute to the severity of the scenario, because in a racially single parent of low income level who has a language issue, things will be much, much worse in comparing to, if we just look at the subgroups individually. So we don't have the opportunity to look at the subgroups individually. They are also interconnected. And the interconnectivity now comes in multiple ways. The people of population subgroups, they will have these problems in different levels. On the other hand, the problems, they will affect lots of people, lots of population subgroups. This is an opportunity as well, because if we can strategically look at the root causes and then start tapping on them, we believe that there will be a ripple effect in the solution and the benefits will be more there. So I think one thing that I just wanted to bring into your attention, so we have a little bit of roadmap that we are having. The immediate step is that city is already working on to understand the context and the need assessment of those population subgroups, and then coming up with different strategies, which the city of Calgary, Rob will share that they are working on. But on the other hand, one more thing I just wanted to bring to your attention. If you think in the community, this all level of people coexist. So if you just simply take on in the community, there are a group of people who don't know, for example, about a digital service or anything. There is another group of people who knows, but they don't care. There is another group of people who knows, who cares, but they don't understand. There is another group of people who knows, cares, understand, but they don't have access. And then there is the last group of people in this context who knows, care, understand, can have access once in a while, but cannot apply sustained access due to lots of external factors. If you relate them, there is this awareness issue, and then they don't care. There is this motivational component, like working with them aspects. There is this learning component for understanding, ensuring access, and then social determinants is more of a ensuring sustainable access, so that life really becomes better, the quality of life improves. Now, without having this understanding, if we are creating some strategies, we will be failing them. We do lots of things in these places. We just create information and throw it out of the window without making sure that the people who are deserving equity, they lots of time are not in a situation to pick it up readily. So I will stop there and then hope, Rob, it's your turn now.
Before Rob starts, I just want to remind everyone, sorry, if you're not speaking, please make sure your mic is muted. And over to Rob. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Turin. Thanks for setting things up. And I'll also do a quick share screen here. Oh, I'll just need that privilege. Okay, I see it now. Thank you. So, as we're good. Everyone can see that, okay?
Yeah.
Yes, I see nods. I see nods. Thank you so much. So thanks, Turin, for setting sort of the context around this. What I'm going to talk a little bit about is our engagement and how our engagement aligned with the research, and then talk about some of the community-led solutions that have begun. There are different phases of development, but just to highlight some of the community-led solutions addressing some of these barriers. But before I did that, you'll notice on the slide that Turin said with respect to understanding current context. And one of the important, I think, considerations, and I, as the social worker, I'd be remiss if I didn't note that digital equity is, or inequity or digital divide is fundamentally based in other inequities that we face as society, right? It's a reflection of, and it was interesting this week, the 2022 report on the National Advisory Committee Council on Poverty released its update report. And in that update report, they talked a little bit about the poverty rate in Canada. And they talked, again, seeing some trends in 2020 related to CERB, some favorable trends. But what was important to note was that many of the groups that Turin highlighted as far as those subpopulation groups are the same groups you see that are overrepresented in poverty. So just quickly pulling from that, low parent households have double the rate of poverty. Those are even higher, not surprisingly, among female-led lone parent households. Indigenous persons, twice the level of poverty we see in society. Newcomers, persons with disabilities, all represented with higher rates of poverty. So just as, again, in understanding our context, I think it's important to note that these are, again, fundamentally, the digital inequity, digital divide is fundamentally founded in other inequities in our society. But in addition to that context piece, as Turin said, one of the things that we challenged ourselves with was going out and understanding and listening to people about, what are the issues, what are the challenges we're seeing here in Calgary. We started the conversation in a time of public health restrictions. So much of our engagement was done using technology. And that was an important part of the conversation. We talked with, and Turin helped us coin the term, we talked with a lot of cousins. So those who are social impact organization staff members, people who volunteer. So, but not the persons themselves. So we undertook those conversations and then committed to ourselves. And again, with certainly the urging of Turin and his research. And again, it was very comforting to hear in our first opening presentation, the value of engaging with persons with lived experience and diverse voices, because that was a commitment we also made to say, we need to hear those voices. So we've been, coming out of public health restrictions, we've been able to now have some focus groups at the Kirby Center. For those unfamiliar with the Kirby Center, it's a social impact organization serving older adults, at the Women's Center. So we've been able to go out and have some of those conversations and hear from people with lived experience. And then the other pieces we've done, we've actually tried to do what we're deeming some pop-up. So going and talking to, everyday Calgarians and on LRT stations, at libraries, to hear from people that may not be attached to these social impact organizations. And what you see on the screen here is very similar to what Turin said, and are the themes that we've heard in going out and speaking with people about their experiences and some of the challenges and some of the barriers that they're experiencing. So for example, again, building on some of the stories that Turin shared with respect to hardware, we heard stories when we went out and talked with people about a household, a family receiving a call from the school that during the height of public health restrictions, the school was concerned because some of the students weren't participating in their online classes. Well, Come to find out, they had a single device, they had a single computer that they were sharing amongst 4 children. And what the family said is, well, we have one child who's in grade 12. We're going to prioritize that person to get the computer. So again, not enough devices to be able to meet the needs within the household. With respect to access, Turin mentioned McDonald's. We also heard a story of a gentleman who each day would come with a laptop and a milk crate, and he'd show up at the library, and he'd sit just outside the front door of the library to gain access to, and again, the library staff were able to chat with him, and what he shared was this was the way he was able to communicate with his family in another province. And so it was very important to him. He didn't have internet access at home, so again, he was relying on some of the public Wi-Fi that was available. With respect to literacy, back to the schools, the schools were actually quite responsive to getting devices into students' hands. And one of the stories that was shared was a device that went home with a student. And great, we have a student. Do you have internet access? Yes, we have internet access. Come to find out, mom and dad had no idea how to even turn the computer on. So again, the CBE actually was really responsive and repurposed some of its own internal help systems to help support some of these literacy issues. The other thing that I'll highlight here as we go on is related to sustainment. Lots of concerns around, how do I keep update with technology? How do I keep my skills update? Who do I contact? If I go through an initial literacy course, that's great. Who do I reach out to? And going forward, and one of the community-based solutions I'll talk about has a bit of an idea around that. So again, similar to what Turin presented, a lot of our engagement talked about these challenges. But what it also did, and not to be, I don't want to be all negative and doom and gloom here today. What it also told us, and we heard about it some yesterday at this. I was lucky enough to attend yesterday. We heard of some of the ways that technology can facilitate and increase participation, and that's been greatly encouraging. So while some people are being left behind, we know it can overcome other barriers, right? We know that it can overcome barriers. Yesterday, Dr. Robbie Bevins-Wagners, who I believe is on the line today, talked about how Calgary Counseling Center did a massive pivot in a very short period of time to do counseling online, and how that has allowed access for many other people and overcome barriers such as childcare and transportation. There's why we spoke yesterday about YYC Connect, where people have used, organizations have used technology around emergency counseling. So people can access emergency counseling very quickly and be able to be directed to an open appointment in very short order. So again, technology can be very facilitative as well. There's a movement afoot, just sort of current, this is very current, where Vibrant Communities Calgary, who is the stewards of our Enough for All poverty reduction strategy, Technology Helps, and the Rotary, and I know Technology Helps, I know Charles Buchanan's on the line today, they're looking to see how technology can facilitate access to emergency food resources, how people navigate the system. So technology can be very facilitative, and that's very encouraging. So again, yesterday we had Mark Abbott from Tech Stewardship talked about the conflicts that we see in technology and what are some of the conflicts. And this was the conflict that I shared with my buddy, was in terms of, we know technology can be facilitative, but we must be incredibly mindful of these barriers and again, all collectively look at overcoming them. And again, I see time is ticking away on us here, but I do want to share some of the community solutions that are taking place in Calgary. And again, I want to be very clear. These are outside, most of them are outside of the city of Calgary, but being done to look at overcoming some of the barriers that we've seen and has been highlighted in the research. So Calgary Learns is a adult learning organization here in Calgary, and they've developed a self-assessment tool for social impact organizations to look at their own services and how they deliver them, and how can they take that self-assessment and look at making their services as accessible as possible. The lead into that is you need to offer the services more than online. That was the sort of lead in on that one. But again, it looks at when you're offering them online, you know, are you looking at things of literacy and language, some of the barriers that that Turin had highlighted. Inclusivity, and I know Jeff's definitely on the line today. Looking again, when we talk about engaging with people with lived experience, they're doing inclusive user testing around engaging those end users in the product and doing it early on, as was highlighted in our first presentation. The Calgary Public Library has a lending program. They've just recently re-upped that program for another year, where they're lending devices as well as hotspots to people who don't have access. And in our engagement, I had the incredible privilege and honor to speak with a gentleman who was able to was trusting me enough to disclose that he was unhoused, and just talked about the lifeline that the library was, that he was able to connect with his family, that he had aspirations of continuing education, and the library was his lifeline, and so he was able to access that. We at the City of Calgary are looking and trying to see if we can't convince some of the telecoms to expand their eligibility around subsidized internet services. Right now, those definitions, some might say, I might say, are quite narrow. And so we're seeing if we can't leverage our fair entry system, which is a low-income screening system for people to access city subsidy programs, and see if we can't leverage that so we can get more people on more affordable internet. And last but not least, and I know we're coming up on it here, and again, plugging a bit, some of the work of Technology Helps. Charles has put forth a model of a one-stop shop, where someone would come into a social impact organization. The social impact organization would be aware of the resources that are available, and to be able to assess those technology needs, both from a literacy perspective, from an access to hardware, from an access to internet perspective, and be able to facilitate those connections within a community hub. And again, you know, Technology Helps, for those that don't know, is just a tremendous social enterprise here in Calgary. So I wanted to plug some of the great work that's going on in Calgary. And with that, I will say we're 10 o'clock, and I'll turn it back over.
Thank you so much, Rob and Dr. Chowdhury, you know, providing, on the one hand, a lot of really rich evidence-based insight into digital inequity and what we might do about it. And then Rob, for taking that information and really applying it in a public policy and citywide rollout context in so many different realms. So super exciting. The digital equity strategy. Thanks so much for sharing. We are short on time, so I know Doug had a great question about, you know, the flourishing of electronic devices can help increase access, but at the same time also creates a lot of e-waste. So something for our movement to think about. But I won't ask you the question. We're going to move on to our next speaker.